Okay. Good day, everybody. Welcome to EarlyBirds Weekly Explorer webinar. My name is Kris Poria. This webinar series is run by EarlyBirds team to promote disruptive leaders, especially innovators. And these are mostly focused on startups and scale-ups who have a minimum viable product or more. Today, our guest is a startup, or maybe very close to a scale-up from Silicon Valley called GhangorCloud. GhangorCloud is a leading provider of cybersecurity solutions, enabling defense against most sophisticated cyber attacks on information and data repositories and applications. GhangorCloud has developed an array of unique, sophisticated technologies that enable a paradigm shift in information security and compliance measures. Ghangor's information security solution is actually acknowledged as industry's most advanced defense against malicious, purposeful act of insiders and outsiders aimed at information and data exfiltration. Let's welcome to the two co-founders of GhangorCloud, Bhanu, Panda, and Tarique, Mustafa. Tarique is the founder and CEO and the brain behind GhangorCloud's game-changing technology and product. He is recognized in the industry as the leading visionary and expert in information security, advanced persistent threat, and data leak prevention. Bhanu is the other co-founder and the chief operating officer, brings over 20 years of experience in leadership and success in the Silicon Valley, both in area of networking, security, and storage. Bhanu has held leadership positions and was an early member at several successful startup companies earlier. So Tarique and Bhanu will share Ghangor's story and solutions for around 20-25 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end. So attendees, please share your questions through the chat box in the meantime, while I will hand over to Bhanu.
Thank you, Kris. Welcome, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here on this forum. And thanks to Kris and Jeff for hosting us here. So on behalf of Ghangor, again, it is deeply our appreciation for having this forum to talk to you guys. So what we're going to do is I'm going to present a few slides, probably spend 15-20 minutes, take you through exactly what the issue that we are solving and the disruptive nature of the offering that we have, which is considered the gold standard in preventing data leaks and data exfiltration attacks that are happening in the world today. So without much ado, I'm going to present my screen here, and then we'll have about 10-15 minutes towards the end where we'll be more than happy to take your questions. So the name of the company is GhangorCloud, and we are Silicon Valley-based company based in San Jose. And Kris already introduced Tarique as the founder and the brains behind this technology. He's a Silicon Valley veteran with a marquee background in security, having served as one of the chief architects at Symantec back in the day and had several successful startups after Symantec. So I think towards the end, we will have a little bit of that, chit chat with Tarique, but I'm going to take you through the technology first. So data leak and exfiltration prevention, that is basically the area of data security that we are playing in. If you look at what is happening in the world today, exfiltration, cyber exfiltration attacks, data exfiltration attacks, it is the core theme in terms of what is happening in terms of stealing of data. And our platform is based on deep AI, deep artificial intelligence. So this is not a machine learning platform. This is built on classical AI, which is the most difficult part of AI. So when it sees something, it knows something, and it will act on that. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So first and foremost, let's look at some of the major leaks that have happened in the world in the past 12 to 18 months. And it'll give us a good context in terms of why you need a technology like this. Capital One of the world's largest financial services firms, they had 110 million records taken out, and they did not even know about this attack. It was a malware-induced attack, and they had a Symantec DLP solution in place. Equifax is one of the two largest credit agencies in the world, 143 million records taken out, and the Pentagon indicted a couple of Chinese military officers for this particular breach. And once again, Equifax did not know about this breach until a few months later. They had a McAfee DLP and a McAfee CASB solution in place. Facebook, everybody knows about it, and they have announced 500 million records being taken out. Facebook is one of the most high-tech firms, if you will, and they use a concoction of their own internal technologies, but suffice to say that it did not work. So you can see the proof is in the pudding here. Anthem Blue Cross, one of the largest healthcare organizations in the world, 80 million records taken out. They had a ForcePoint DLP and a CASB in place. So the list goes on and on. Basically, there are two takeaways from this slide. Takeaway number one is this problem of malicious data leaks or data exfiltration attacks is across industry verticals. So it is vertical agnostic, from high-tech to healthcare to financial services to banks and government agencies. Everyone has been exposed. The second biggest takeaway is, all these are big Fortune 500 corporations. They've invested heavily into security, and clearly all of them have data security solutions like DLP and CASB in place, and it did not really help. So now let's take a quick look at why this is the case, because most of every big enterprise organization has a security layer in place. And broadly speaking, the security layer has several vital components. Antivirus, IPS is an intrusion prevention system, IDS is an intrusion detection system. Then you have the firewall layer, and you have the next generation firewalls like the Palo Alto or the Fortinets. Then you come to DLP, or the data leak prevention, which is the third generation DLP technologies are still in vogue. And and then you have finally the APT, or what you call the advanced persistent threat, a line of products like FireEye, Damballa, and now this has morphed into an EDR technologies where you're deploying this APT inside, and like CrowdStrike, Cylance, there are some of the big names in that. So when you have a big security layer like this, why do you have so many data leaks? So this is the $1 million question. And the answer is fairly easy. You got malware coming in from the outside. You got advanced persistent threats coming in from the outside, what you call the zero-day exploits. And in most cases, the malware is a state-to-state attack, if you will. You have North Korea, Russia, China, Iran, or some of the big players that people talk about putting out this malware. So when this malware is coming in, you have two things in your stack. You got your next generation firewall to a lesser extent, and the APT devices to a maximum extent, trying to detect. And the efficacy of the APT devices is approximately 27 to 30% in detecting malware, because we have to realize that the malware also has an AI component, and it is constantly morphing. So the APTs can detect up to 1/3 of those APTs coming in. So what it means is a vast majority of malware is coming right inside your network. That's why you see the dotted red lines to the right. And once this malware comes in, it has only two objectives. Either it's going to destroy your infrastructure, like if you remember how the Stuxnet software did to the Iranian centrifuges, or in the context of an enterprise, the malware is going to stay stealthily inside your network, capture your data, and take that confidential data out. And when it is taking this data out, there's only one thing in your security stack, which is your DLP solution, supposed to detect and prevent that leak from going out. But unfortunately, the current DLP solutions don't understand malware, or they don't even understand malicious insiders. So you got 100% of the time, your data is leaking out. So when you see in the previous slide why they have already deployed all this big name technologies, but they're not working, you get a good idea from here why that is happening. Now, taking a different view purely into data leaks, I'm using the analogy of an iceberg here. The tip of the iceberg is insiders who are accidentally leaking information. Now, this has been the case ever since the DLP has come into play. The accidental leaks coming from insiders still happens today, but in the larger scheme of things, this is less than 20% of the problem. That's why it's called the tip of the iceberg, which means the biggest problem, the vast majority of the problem is below the surface of the water. You got insiders who are maliciously leaking information. We don't have to, I mean, there are multiple examples that are out there. Edward Snowden comes to mind, who was a NSA contractor, who he had access to a lot of confidential information, and he took it out at will. And this is from NSA, where they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on data security solutions. And in practical, real-world enterprise examples, you can see the Waymo example, where the chief architect took all the source code from Google, right? So this is a very difficult problem because today, data is completely monetizable. So if you have access to confidential data, you can stay inside as a good corporate citizen, but you can set up an account on the dark web and you can, peddle your wares, so to speak, and set up alternate revenue streams for yourself. So this is about 30% of all the problems that happen today are attributed to this malicious leakage from insiders. Then the problem gets a little bit more involved because once the malware has come inside, it's sitting on your desktop, on your laptop, desktop. It is now logging whatever you're typing. It's basically deploying the key loggers. So now it understands your access to your email. So while it is collecting the data, it can log in as you because your identity got compromised, and then it can attach the data and send it out. So, and then it can go into the sandbox and remove instance of what was sent out. So when the real you logs in, you would not know that somebody had actually taken the information using your identity. Very difficult to detect, but this also accounts for about 20% of all the leaks that happen today. And then finally, you got the malware sitting as a bot inside your network, and it is essentially taking out the data. So if you look at the bottom three use cases, they constitute 80 to 90% of all the leaks that happen today. And these bottom three use cases are collectively called malicious data leaks, or what you call exfiltration attacks. The top in white is called a leak. This is an exfiltration, so a very clear demarcation. And when you look at some of the technologies available today in the market, these are your traditional DLP solutions from Symantec, McAfee, ForcePoint. Those are the top three, but there are a bunch of others as well. They essentially come under this bucket because these were all Silicon Valley companies that got bought out in the 2002 to 2003 timeframe. So essentially, they're still in vogue right now. So unbelievable as it might sound, 20-year-old technologies are still being deployed to address a current problem, which is the bottom three layers. So you see a clear exposure in terms of what is not covered. So 80 to 90% of the problem is actually left unaddressed, despite having these name brand technologies in place. Now, when you look at the evolution of DLP solutions, and this is something that we took from Frost & Sullivan, which is one of the world's leading analysts, and they talk about the evolution of DLP solutions. The first generation DLP came out in '98. This is like, you have a password file and you got a PDF file, you set a password on it. Then when you send it to a recipient, if they have the password, they can open the file. Otherwise, they cannot. That's your first generation. Soon thereafter, the second generation came out trying to protect your structured data, like your key, your social security numbers, your national ID numbers, your credit card numbers, anything that is structured, using regular expressions as technology. And so definitely this was better than the first generation, but approximately 5 to 6% of corporate data is structured, which means a vast majority of data is unstructured. So soon thereafter, in 2002, a bunch of startups came out of the Silicon Valley addressing the unstructured data problem. And of course, these technologies got acquired by Symantec, McAfee, etc. Now, when you look at it at the top, the key limitation is accidental data leak scenarios only, because back in the day, 20 years ago, there was no malware. Malware is a recent phenomenon. So of course, these technologies could not address that. So this was purely meant to address accidental data leaks. And you see, interestingly, there's a huge gap. You know, you saw these three technologies, these three generations came pretty quickly, one after the other. And there's a big 14-year gap until the fourth generation DLP came out. And this is really what Ghangor has pioneered. You know, now it is all information-centric. Your data could be structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. It is looking at information as a whole. And it is the first technology to essentially look at both the accidental and malicious data leak scenarios. So this is the world's first and only fourth generation at this point of time. At some point, we will have competition, but at this point of time, we are the only provider. Now, let's dig deeper into what we are providing. And this is what we call the next generation in data and cybersecurity. So the name of the product is called Information Security Enforcer. The emphasis is really on the last word, which is the enforcer, because we are enforcing the information security. And this is also, the analysts call it the first and only fourth generation DLP. In short, it is called ICE, standing for Information Security Enforcer. So there's tremendous amount of automation and real-time controls that come into play. Anybody who has deployed DLP will attest to the fact that it is very manual, very complex, very cumbersome. All of that is history. There's a lot of automation that comes in that really makes life easy for customers in terms of deploying it, configuring it, and maintaining it. So multiple levels of benefits. The first benefit is a cyber SOC. This is a first of its kind. It's a C4I. Cyber SOC has a C4I elements in it. There are 4 C's in there: centralized command, control, collaboration, and I stands for intelligence. So it's a very military style of visibility, real-time visibility with built-in forensic trails inside the product. Then the prevention of malware exfiltration. If you refer to the latest SolarWinds-based attack that has happened about 4 weeks ago, and approximately 30,000 enterprises have been affected by this. Of course, we are the only product at this point of time that can detect and prevent that malware exfiltration from happening. The third big benefit is on the compliance side, because we have built all compliances like PCI, GDPR, HIPAA, etc., for various industry verticals. And finally, the prevention of insider leaks, whether they're malicious insiders or accidental insiders. So we are taking care of that as well. So broadly, these are the four major benefits for customers. So when you look at it under the hood, there are a lot of big innovations coming into play. If you start from the left, auto data classification. So DLP traditionally never had classification built in. So this essentially looks at your data as your data is going through multiple channels of communication, such as email. You could be using cloud services. You could be using FTP, instant messaging, etc. So it's looking at data as it's flowing, and it's automatically classifying the data in real time without any manual intervention. Okay, so this is a big thing, because with manual data classification products put in place, you can purposefully misclassify data and take the data out. That is your classic malicious insider example. You got a manual deploy classification tool and you have a DLP, but now I'm taking confidential data and purposefully misclassifying it as public and taking it out through the DLP. Now that cannot be done with our system, because we are automatically classifying the data. There's no manual pre-processing required. There's no tagging required. So it'll look at the data and it'll classify it in real time. Big innovation. It's an identity and role-based GRC system. So you have these concepts of segregation of duty, segmentation of duty, that GRC provides. And so it looks at both the identity and the role of the actor. And the actor could be a human actor, it could be a machine actor, or it could be a process actor like a bot, right? It doesn't really matter. We look at everything. Then we have this unique thing called automatic data access control. So internally, if people are accessing data in violation, they don't have the authorization, but they're touching the data, we would know it automatically. You can insert your business logic and we will synthesize it. Then we come to this auto policy thing, another major innovation in its own right, because you look at any security product today, you have to write policies manually, especially in the DLP context. This is the Achilles heel, because when you write manual policies, first of all, it takes a long time to deploy. And secondly, when you deploy that, it generates a lot of false positives. And that creates a huge support nightmare. But more importantly, it will not be able to detect your false negatives. You have a malware taking out data, and the policy that you configured cannot essentially track it. Okay, so all of that is history with this, because in our system, you don't write a single manual policy. The business logic that you insert is synthesized automatically, and it will generate policies automatically for you, whether they're 10 users, 10,000 users, or 1 million users. One of the major marquee innovations where you can apply this to any data security area, but more specifically, we are applying here to the DLP context. Then finally, we have the compliance engine, like I talked about earlier, where we have a variety of compliances that we can enforce. And if there are specific compliances in Australia or New Zealand, then we can essentially adapt these to apply for those compliances as well. So all of these engines are coming together synergistically into a single piece of software. And that was the information security enforcer that I talked about in the previous slide. Now, we have pretty much won all the major awards in this category, and I won't go through the awards here in the interest of time, but I'll point out that the most recent award that we won came from Frost & Sullivan. It's a global data leak prevention technology innovation award. This is also a best practices award. So it's just not about technology, but they talk to all our customers and found out from the customers directly why we were replacing Symantec and ForcePoint and McAfee's of the world, right? So this is a best practices award. We won this in 2018 as well. So it's very hard for a startup to repeat such business practices awards. So we are pretty grateful for that. Now, when you look at ICE as a product, and you will see that it is providing multiple functions which are actually deployed as separate products in silos. DLP is deployed as a silo. Data access control is a separate product. Governance and regulatory compliance, you need another product. CyberSOC is the latest and greatest thing. You have probably 1 or 2 startups doing just that. Then data classification has been an age-old technology. You got Bolden James, Titus, etc., been there for about 30 years. And then CASB is basically a cloud access security broker where you're looking at the cloud applications themselves. So typically, we know in the US, typically you have at least most of these are deployed. Outside of the US, we see that commonly DLP, CASB, data classification are deployed. So what we have done is we have taken a very synergistic approach to protecting your data. So now you don't have to deploy in silos anymore. You got a single platform giving you comprehensive security. And of course, all our customers attest to this fact that we provide the highest customer value for data security solutions. All right, so let's look at some of the customer use cases that are prominent in the world today. And so the top 3 are of crucial importance. Malicious insider protection, we talked about. If you have somebody who's insider who wants to take out information today, there's very little that's going to stop them from taking out the data. Then, of course, malware, coming in and taking out the data continues to happen on an ongoing basis. And this becomes actually an existential threat for a lot of organizations. You lose your intellectual property, you lose your key elements of your financial data, pretty much game's over. Then you have the business email compromise where your identity is compromised and data is being taken out. Then, of course, the cloud apps control. This is where CASB plays big time because, I don't know what's happening to the cloud. I don't know what data is being transferred to the cloud. How do I essentially detect that? And then auto data classification, like I said earlier, manual classification tools really don't work in the realm of data security in today's world. So you need automatic real-time identification and classification of data. And then, of course, your legacy table stakes use case is accidental insider protection. So let's do a compare and contrast between a 4th generation DLP like Ghangor and with all the 3rd generation DLP solutions and the latest and greatest CASB solutions that are available. So when you do a compare and contrast, really the biggest differentiation is on the top 3 use cases. And that comprises really 80 to 90% of all your data exfiltration attacks that are happening in today's world. So in terms of deployment, while there is a cloud in the name, we can be deployed, it's a piece of software, very flexible in terms of deployment. You can deploy completely on-prem inside your network with no exposure to the cloud at all. But in this particular case, it is not only looking at your on-prem applications, but it is also looking at your access to your cloud applications. The second way of deploying it is we can be deployed in a public cloud infrastructure like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. And in this case, again, we are sitting in the public cloud infrastructure, and we can basically look at your applications. A third way of doing it is we can offer it as a full service, where we can extend your private address space into a private cloud and provide a service for you. This way, it's a zero-touch kind of a deployment where it doesn't really consume any of your resources. So really different strokes for different folks. So whatever kind of deployment that you would look for, we can certainly provide that. So that is essentially a quick presentation about the technology and what we do. Just a quick wrap up. ICE is the name of the product, or Information Security Enforcer. And this is the world's first and only data leak and exfiltration prevention solution. DLP, if you look at it, is 3 letters. It is 3rd generation. It does not cover the bottom 3 use cases of the iceberg. A DLEP is really what you require today. Exfiltration is the name of the game, and this is the bottom 3 use cases of the iceberg. So this is the world's first and only technology to do that. And this is basically a compare and contrast, a final slide. Now, in terms of applicability of this solution to different verticals, we are vertical agnostic. We have customers across all major verticals, including healthcare, pharma, banking, financial services, oil and gas, government agencies, et cetera. Very easy to do a proof of concept. Typically, what we do is we provide a quick and easy proof of concept, very easy to set it up. So we can basically sign NDAs and set up a quick proof of concept, and proof is in the pudding. Once you see exactly what it is doing, it's very easy to basically, go live with it. The system can be deployed in a silent mode or in an active mode. In a silent mode, and typically when we do a proof of concept, we deploy it in a silent mode. So we give you visibility. Maybe you can pick email as an application. We look at the email traffic and we give you instantaneous visibility. And then if you choose to purchase a product and go live, you can continue to use the system, and toggling a button, you can just go active mode. So when it sees a violation, it can act on it. Okay, so we made it super flexible with a lot of automation that comes into play. We have customers across all major verticals, and we have varieties. The use cases that I showed you, the prominent use cases are the top 4 that I talked about, everything in the malicious exfiltration category, where it's a clear differentiation between us and everybody else. There's nobody else who addresses, especially this bottom 3 areas right here. Okay, so with that, we're ready to take any questions from your side.
No, thank you very much. Great presentation. And I think given that we finished with the time, one question. what skills would an enterprise need to take full advantage of ICE?
Great question. Now, this ICE actually plays quite a bit with all the automation that we bring to bear in the product. Of course, you would need basic skills for administering, because we work with a lot of other equipment inside, right? We work with the Microsoft equipment like Active Directory or Exchange or Office 365, if you will. We are talking to all the applications. So somebody who is well versed with deploying things in the network, I mean, those skills, should be sufficient. You don't need anything extra to basically deploy something like this. One of the biggest benefits of a technology like this is we have actually looked very carefully in terms of the customer experience. How much does it take to deploy it? What does it take to maintain and manage it? And what does it take to support, right? So that is really where the element of TCO comes in play, the OpEx part of it. And DLP traditionally struggled quite a bit in that area, because you require people with specific skills to do that. And then it's an ongoing maintenance is pretty arduous, right? All of that goes away. So to answer your question, generic skills of deploying your networking security equipment should suffice.
Excellent. Thank you, Bhanu. Thank you very much again for the presentation, and congratulations on many awards you guys have won.
Thank you, Kris.
That a lot of people will get in touch with you after the webinar. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Kris. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.